So hello students, welcome to CBSE Vedantu NCERT Solutions. On this channel, we do NCERT line by line. We do questions of your bag size, exercise and everything. So this is a first session, right? This is the first session of Morphology of Flowering Plants where we'll be talking about the modifications. This is a very big chapter and this is actually a very big chapter. And in this chapter, usually students, in this chapter, usually we end up getting around, let's say in this chapter round we end up getting around 4 questions. Generally there are 4 questions, that is the general average. Sometimes it can even increase to 6 questions depending upon the examiner's mood and everything. So maximum 6 questions, so that's a lot of marks for this chapter, and it is a very easy chapter to start with. And let's start the class students, let's not waste any time. Let me tell you what we'll be doing in today's class, part 1. In the first part we'll be discussing about the modification. There is something called as root, there's something called as shoot. In root we'll be talking about roots. In a shoot we'll be talking about the stem. We'll be talking about something called as the leaves. We'll be talking something called as the flower. So in today's class we'll be focusing on three main aspects, that is root, stem as well as leaves. Three different parts of the plant which we'll be talking in today's class, especially the modification around it. For example, root is normal root, but what if it gets modified to something else for other function? That we'll be discussing. For example, we have a leaf. Leaf gets modified for something else. What is the function? And let me tell you, students, this is not available in your new NCERT, but it is given in your NEET syllabus. So if you want to study this particular section of morphology of flowering plants, you need to study from the old NCERT. Okay, you need to study from the old NCERT, this particular section of it. Okay. So let's start, students. Let's not waste any time. Let me know in the chat if I'm perfectly audible and visible to all of you. Yes, I'm audible and visible. Okay. So with that being said, let's start the class right now. Okay, let me just change the color. The wide range in the structure of higher plants will never fail to fascinate us. The higher plants, referring to as the angiosperms, it always amazes us based on, because there are so many different types of plants. Like especially there are more than 3 lakh species of angiosperms. More than 3 lakh species of angiosperms. Such wide variety, right? Even though angiosperms show such a large diversity in external structure or morphology, they are all characterized by presence of root, stem, leaf, flower and fruit. We have so many different types of varieties, more than 3 lakh species of plants, higher plants, angiosperms, but every single plant will have a root, will have a stem, will have a flower, will have a fruit and will have a leaf, right? In chapter 2 and 3, we talked about the classification of plants based on the morphology and other characteristics, plant kingdom. For any successful attempt at classification and at understanding any higher plants, or for that matter any living organism, we need to know the standard technical terms and standard definitions. For example, what if there are 2 leaves at each node? What do you call that? What if there's a very peculiar arrangement of flowers and all the flowers petals are joined together? What do you call that? All the sepals are free. What do you call that? If all the stamens are in one bundle, what do you call that? All the stamens are arranged in 2 bundles, what do you call that? So every single structure has a proper definition to it, has a proper technical term to it. So you need to understand those technical terms in order to classify. Okay. We also need to know about the possible variations in different plants found in adaptation of plants to their environment. That is adaptation to various habitats for protection, climbing or storage. For example, leaf becoming into tendril, axillary bud develop into a thorn, right? Stem getting swollen, a stem helping in propagation. A stem, potato is a stem modification. Ginger is a stem modification. Corn is a stem modification. Right? Ginger is not root. Ginger is not a root. Right? In root modification, you have sweet potato, carrot, turnip. Right? All of these are different types of modification which are coming under the modifications or adaptations. Okay. If you pull out any weed, you will see that all of them have roots, stem, and leaves, even the weeds. Then they may be bearing flowers or fruit. The underground part of the flowering plant is the root system, while the portion above the ground is called as the shoot system. For example, friends, see this diagram. This is the particular root system right here under the ground, which is present in the soil. This entire thing is called as a root system. Right, root system. It has something called as primary root, secondary root, which I will discuss later on, obviously. But this is the entire root system. Anything above the ground is called as the shoot system, which has your stem, leaf, fruit, flower, nodal region, internodal region. It has something called as bud. All of this above the ground is called a shoot system. Now, apart from this classification, let's try to classify the entire plant into two categories based on vegetative characters and reproductive characters now. For example, students, if I ask you which is the vegetative characters here, which is the vegetative characters right here, you will tell me, sir, the vegetative characters or vegetative parts is going to be roots. Obviously, sir, roots are vegetative in nature. We have the branches. We have the stem right here. We have the leaf. All of these are vegetative. Now, if I ask you, what are the reproductive parts? Reproductive parts. Reproductive parts include the flower, obviously reproductive unit. Seed is a product of reproduction. Fruit is also product of the reproduction. So in the entire plant, if you look at the entire plant, we have the vegetative parts and we have the reproductive parts of a plant. Typical plant. Okay. Now, students, one by one, we will focus on each one of them and understand each one of them and also learn the adaptations or modifications. Okay. For example, tell me what is basically root? Can anyone tell me in the chat what is root? First of all, students, if this is the a seed, here we have the development of plumule. Here we have development of radicle. Tell me, does the root develop from? Does the root develop from radicle, or does it develop from the plumule? Tell me, where does the root develop from? You will tell me, sir, basic common knowledge. Root develops from the radicle, and shoot develops from the plumule. So can I tell the first point for root system is that it is developing from the radicle. It is developing from the radicle. Developing from the radical. First point, developing from the radical. Okay, done. Now, where do you find root? Do you find root under the ground or do you find root hanging in the air? You tell me, sir, roots are obviously underground, right? Roots are obviously underground. Roots are obviously found underground, right? Now, what is the color of the roots? Do you find them in any different colors? Red, green, orange, blue, like Vibgyor? No. We find them in basic color, that is brown or colorless. But are they ever green? No. Can I tell they are non-green? Generally, they are non-green. Non-green color. Non-green color. Okay. Now, if for example, this is the soil and this is the roots. Are the roots growing towards the gravity or away from the gravity? You tell me, sir, they are growing towards the gravity. So positive geotropism. Positive geotropism. Now, are they growing towards the sunlight or away from the sunlight? Away from the sunlight. So can I tell they're negatively phototropic in nature? Negatively phototropic in nature. Clear? This is with respect to the root system, with respect to the entire root system. Clear? Now, students, you will notice on the roots, do you notice some kind of form of node and internode on the root? For example, if you look at a stem, for example, if you look at a stem, students, for example, if you look at a typical stem, one second, students. For example, if you look at a typical stem, if you look at typical stem, you will find something called as nodal region and internodal region in a stem, on a stem. But you don't see such an arrangement in the case when it comes to the roots. You do not see such an arrangement when it comes to the roots. You do not see such an arrangement. So there's no nodes and internodes. Node and internode. Node and internode are completely absent in the case of root system. I hope following points are clear. Very basic thing, and everyone should know all this, right? Everyone should know all these basic things about the root system, right? Root system. Now tell me what could be the. This is, students, see this. This is a typical taproot. This right here is a typical taproot. A typical taproot will have something called as the primary root, the big fat one. From the primary root, we can see development of secondary roots, also called as lateral roots. Lateral roots. From the lateral roots, we can see formation of tertiary roots. This is a typical taproot. And the primary root is also called as the main root. Same to same. Main root is also called as the primary root, from which lateral roots are arising. Lateral roots are arising from the main root. Okay. Now, students, tell me the function of roots. Anyone? What is the function or main function of root? Obviously, the first main function of root is absorption. Yes, the main function of root is absorption of H2O, that is water, and minerals. Absorption of water and minerals is the main function of any root, right? Main function of any root is absorption of water and absorption of minerals. Absorption of minerals. At the same time, can I tell a particular root will make sure whatever happens, heavy wind, or you try to pull it also, it will never come out easily. Roots, because plant will never come out easily because the plants are fixed to the soil. And can I call it anchorage? Can I call that anchorage? It is fixed to the soil, anchorage, right? Now, apart from that, our roots can also function in storage. Generally, they can store certain nutrients. And the last one, which many students do not know, that is our roots, students, they're involved. They're involved in synthesis. They're involved in synthesis of phytohormones. Phytohormones. Involved in synthesis of phytohormones like gibberellins and cytokinins. Okay, gibberellins and cytokinins all are released by the roots. They're released by the roots. Now that is the function of roots. Let's read what is given in NCERT now, students. In majority, the dicot. In majority, the dicot plant, the direct elongation of radicle. I told you, direct elongation of radicle leads to the formation of primary root. Yes, leads to the formation of primary root, which grows inside the soil. It bears lateral roots of several order that are referred to as secondary, tertiary roots. So lateral roots are also called as what, students? Lateral roots are also called as the secondary roots. Lateral roots are also called as secondary root. The main root is called as what? Primary root. See here. Main root is also called as primary root. Lateral roots are also called as your tertiary and secondary roots. They're basically the lateral roots. Okay. Now, students, now what are the different types of roots? Obviously, there is not only one. You might have heard it in when you were in very young stage, probably in class 6, 7th, 8th, or 9th, 10th. You might have studied that a dicot will have taproot. A dicot's plant will have a taproot. At the same time, in the case of monocot, the grasses, you will have fibrous root. Those are two different types of roots, right? So let's understand the types of roots. There are actually three of them. Technically only two, but NCERT says three, right? The first one is called as taproot. All of you know the famous taproot. First one is called as the taproot. Now, what is a taproot, students? By definition, what is a taproot? For example, students, understand. This is the seed. Here we have plumule. Here we have radicle. Plumule and radicle. This is the radicle. This is the radicle. Taproot is a root. Taproot is a root which which develops directly, which develops directly from the radical, which develops directly from the radical. That is called as a taproot. Example, all of you know, all the dicots, even gymnosperms, even the gymnosperms have the dicot taproot. They have the taproot. So what are the taproot, students? Definition wise, definition of taproot is that a root which develops from the radical. From the radical. That is a taproot. Okay. Now, second one, understand. What is a fibrous root then? What is a fibrous root? No. What is a fibrous root? What is a fibrous root? Understand definition. If this is the stem, this is the stem. From the base of the stem, this is the called as the base of the stem. This is the base of the stem. From base of the stem, you can see roots are coming out. Base of the stem. So what is the definition of fibrous root? Definition of fibrous root is very simple. Roots which arise from base of the stem. Roots which arise from base of the stem. That is called as fibrous root. Definition, that's what students, an examination in your NEET question, NEET there was a question like this. What is a fibrous root? Roots which arise from the base of the stem are called as which type of roots? Options: taproot, fibrous root, adventitious root, or anything else. So roots which arise from the base of the stem is called as fibrous root. It is called as fibrous root. Fibrous root. Now the last one, last one. Understand. What then? What is the adventitious root then? What is a adventitious root? What is a adventitious root? Simple again. For example, students, understand. How many of you have seen the bryophyllum? You might have seen the leaf of bryophyllum on the leaf or on the any of the stem. This is a stem, right? This is the stem or a leaf. From the stem or the leaf, from the stem, roots can start arising. From the leaf corner, leaves are arising. Roots will start arising from the leaf itself. Roots will arise from the leaf. Exactly. So, what is adventitious roots, students? Adventitious roots are the roots which arise from any part of the plant. Any part of the plant. Any part of the plant other than other than the radical. Any part of the plant, if the root is coming, other than the radical, that is called as adventitious root. That is called as adventitious root. So for from leaf, from stem, roots are coming, adventitious roots. You might have seen this, students. You might have seen this in the case of banyan tree. Roots are rising from the branches. They're called as adventitious roots. Now you tell me, students, what was the definition of fibrous root? The definition of fibrous root was that roots which arise from the base of the stem. Are they arising from radical fibrous root? No. They are not arising from radical. So then I can technically call them. Can I then technically call fibrous root are basically the type of adventitious roots? Why? Because they're arising from the base of the stem, not from the radical. Dun, dun, dun. So that definition, the difference should be very clear to everyone who was trying to understand what is basically a root. Taproot, adventitious roots. These are two main categories. Fibrous root is a subcategory of adventitious root. Okay. Now here example I'll tell you. Example is basically the monocots. Monocots. That is grasses and wheat. All of them are monocots. All of them are monocots. Okay, types of roots. Now friends, let's read NCERT. Now before we go to NCERT, I told you from the radical taproot is coming out. and that's why dicots have taproot. But the question to you, all of you, question to you, right? Question to all of you. A question. Volume is correct only. What scam you're telling me? Volume is correct only. A question to all of you now. Don't we have radical in the case of monocots? Simple question. A simple question to all of you. Don't we have radical in the case of monocot? If there is radical, why don't we have taproot in the taproot in the case of monocots then? See, I told you in the case of dicots, in the case of dicots, from the radical, from the radical, we have the taproot coming out. Taproot. We learned that right here. We learned right here. Taproot is a root which develops directly from the radical. Then what about in the case of monocots? In the case of monocots, do we not have the radical? Tell me, friends. Do we have the radical or not? In the case of monocots, do we have the radical? The answer is yes. Yes, they also have radical. In the case of monocots, they have the radical, students. They have the radical. And remember, radical is also giving rise to the primary root. It is giving rise to primary root in the case of monocots. But this primary root is very short-lived. It is very short-lived. Now scam happened to the plants. Plants are like, what is this? We had a primary root, very short-lived, passed away. So we need some replacement, right? Yes. So this primary root is replaced by, primary root is replaced, primary root is replaced by bunch, bunch of roots. One second. Primary root is replaced by large number of roots, large number of roots. Primary root is replaced by large number. That's why you see. That's why in the case of fibrous root. That's why in the case of fibrous root, in the case of your monocots, fibrous root in the case of monocot, we have, when you remove monocot, you will see so many roots. One whole gang of roots will be there. If you go nearby area, you go and find some monocot, some grass you find. Try to pluck the grass. When you pluck the grass, do you get something like this? Can you get a bunch? Do you get a bunch like this? Do you get a bunch like this? Yes. So in the case of monocots, once upon a time there will be a primary root. But the primary root is very short-lived, very young lifespan it has. And to replace the primary root, there will be development of fibrous root. I hope that concept is clear to all of you. I hope that concept is clear to all of you. What is fibrous root? Okay. See here. In monocots, the primary root is short-lived and is replaced by a large number of roots. Those roots originate from the base of the stem and they're called as fibrous root. Roots which are arising from the base of the stem. See right here. We don't. Roots which arise from the base of the stem are called as fibrous root. Done. Right. In some plants like grasses, monstera, and banyan tree, roots arise from the parts of the plant other than the radical. That is called as adventitious roots. Arise from the any part of the plant other than the radical is called as adventitious roots. Did we learn that? Yes, we learned that. Okay. Hello to everyone. Now, the main function of the root system is to absorption of water and minerals from the soil. All of you know that. Providing a proper anchorage, make sure the plant is not moving anywhere. Otherwise, the plant also won't move. But okay. Storing reserve food material and synthesis of PGR. What is PGR? PGR is basically phytohormones. Phytohormones is PGR. Clear all of you? सर मोनोकॉट में प्रेजेंट होता है हर्षा, हाँ मोनोकॉट में प्रेजेंट होता है. मोनोकॉट पार्डन में हिंदी हो गया. मोनोकॉट में प्राइमरी रूट होता है पर वो प्राइमरी रूट थोड़े दिन के बाद रिप्लेस हो जाता है. like it very short lived. It is very short lived. Can you see here? It is very short lived primary root. Now can the plant survive without the primary root? Tell me. Plants can't survive without the roots. So the primary root is replaced by large number of roots. and that is called as fibrous root. Okay, that is called as fibrous root. See here, example of adventitious roots. In the case of your grasses, also your fibrous root is adventitious root. Adventitious roots. Okay. Now, students, now we'll go to the next topic. Now we'll go to the next topic called as regions of the root. There are different regions in the root. Okay, many different types of regions are there. Many different regions are there. Okay, regions of the root. Now, first, which is the first region? Can you see this? First of all, before we go to the root cap, all of you will be wondering what is this cap-like structure present in the slide? What is this? What is this round cap-like structure? This right here is nothing but the thimble. This right here is nothing but a thimble. It is called as thimble. And thimble is used for sewing, for sieving or this tailoring work and all. It is used in tailoring work. This is called thimble. Okay. And if you see this root cap right here, students, if you see this root cap right here, doesn't it look like a thimble? Tell me all of you. This root cap right here, doesn't it look like a thimble? This is a thimble, inverted thimble. So root cap looks like a thimble. Now question to all of you, okay? Do we find root cap in all the plants? For to answer that question, you need to know what is the function of a root cap first of all. The main function of root cap is to protect the region of meristematic activity. The main function of root cap is protection. What is it protecting? It is protecting the region of meristematic activity. Nice protection it is giving. Why protecting from whom then? When the root is entering inside the soil, students, when the root is penetrating into the soil, this is the soil, right? This is the soil. When the roots are penetrating into the soil, the root cap is making sure that region of meristematic activity is protected. When the root is going into the soil. Now you tell me, students, what if there is no soil? What is the meaning of that, sir? Can the plant survive without the soil? Yes, they can survive without the soil. What about aquatic plants? Aquatic plants do not have soil. Can they survive? Yes. Do they need root cap that time? No. So aquatic plants do not need a root cap. Aquatic plants do not need a root cap that time. What about parasitic plants? Parasitic plants are growing on, for example, epiphytes. Epiphytes are already growing on other plants. They also do not have root. They have root for anchorage, but they don't have roots for penetration to the soil. So they also do not have root cap. Okay. Now this is called as root cap. Main function is protection. Now if you go above the root cap, the next region above the root cap, students, the next region above the root cap is called as region of meristematic activity. This one right here. Can you see? This one is called as region of meristematic activity. Now you tell me, students, also called as your root apical meristem. Okay, root apical meristem. The main function of root apical meristem is dividing cells. Now, can anyone tell me any of the functions of RAM? Like any, not function, any properties of RAM, how the cells will be there? Obviously, these are dividing cells. These are dividing cells, the cells will be a little small. They will have large, dense cytoplasm or protoplasm. Dividing cells, primary cell wall, no vacuoles, large nucleus. All of these are properties of a dividing cell. For example, see here, the root is covered at the apex by a thimble-like structure called as root cap. Here, this is a thimble-like structure called as root cap. It protects the tender apex of the root as it makes its way through the soil. Which apex? RAM. A few millimeter above the root cap is the region of meristematic activity. The cells in this region are very small cells. I told you. Small cells, young cells, thin walled, dividing cells, dense protoplasm, dividing repeatedly, all the properties of meristematic activity. Now, students, for example, this is the soil. This is the soil, and this is the proximal end. Proximal end. This is the distal end. Now, if I tell the proximal region to the meristematic activity, this should be the region. This is going towards the proximal end. Going towards the proximal end. So, we are going towards the proximal end now. Now, see here. The cells proximal to region, the cells proximal to the region undergo rapid elongation. So region of elongation will have how many what type of cells? In region of elongations, the cell will undergo enlargement and elongation. And it is the same region of elongation. It is the same region of elongation which is giving the length of the root. So length of the root is responsible by region of elongation. See here. Undergo rapid elongation and are responsible for the growth of the root in length. Growth of the root in lengthwise. Lengthwise root. Region is called as elongation. Now you tell me, what do you have proximal side again? Proximal side is toward the soil, top soil. Now proximal end we will have something called as region of maturation. Now tell me, what is the meaning of maturation? Mature, you have nice mind is set, you will become more wise, right? So here also in the case of root also, in the region of maturation, all the cells become mature and they have fixed role now. They have a fixed role. The cells of the region of elongation gradually differentiate and mature, and hence this zone proximal to the region of elongation is the region of maturation. From this region, some of the epidermal cells form very fine and delicate thread-like structure called as root hair. So if you see the epidermal layer, epidermal layer of region of maturation, we can see the development of root hair. Example, a little easier to remember it. If someone is becoming mature, they're old. They're old now. When you're old, beard will come out. We will be becoming wise. For in terms for guys and everything. For guys, I'm telling you. So root hair is developing here. Wise person. Root hair is developing from the region of maturation. Region of maturation. Notes, right? Today I will say. Today that's what. Today, see students, you should realize every single day I reach home at around 11 o'clock in the night. Every single night I reach home at 11 p.m. to my house. Okay. After 11 p.m., I don't want to look at my notes or I don't want to look at my notes or anything. I just want to eat and sleep after 11 p.m. Right. You should know that. So today I came home early. So today I will send the notes. Okay. Today or maximum by tomorrow, I will send the notes one by one. Okay. Okay. So chill. I will send you the notes and give me a list of all the chapters you want notes. I believe notes should be given for photosynthesis in higher plants, respiration, biomolecules, morphology, and living world. Five chapters, right? Five chapters. Five chapters. I'll give you the notes. Don't worry. Everything is there. It's a matter of I have to upload somewhere. Each note I have to sit and find where it's been stored. Okay, that takes some time. Okay. Discord boy, what is there in short? What is there in shout at? Chill. Have an amazing life. Right. Now these root hair absorb water and minerals from the soil. Right. Yeah, modification of root. All of you know modification of roots. So understand the modification of root of roots. Understand. Very simple modification of root. And we'll go one by one. We'll go one by one. Okay. For example, understand. In modification of root. Very simple it is. Very, very simple. Before I ask the question, you tell me the answer now. Okay. Before I ask the question. For example, for storage. For storage, there are two type of roots. Can anyone tell me in the chat? For storage, we have something called as the first one is the taproot, and we have the adventitious roots. Adventitious root. Quickly tell me the example of taproot for storage. We have the carrot, we have the turnip, carrot and turnip for taproot. Now for adventitious root, what do we have? For adventitious roots, we have something called as sweet potato. Sweet potato. We also have something called as asparagus. Asparagus. Asparagus for adventitious roots, right? Asparagus for adventitious roots. That is for storage. Okay. Now, what about for support? What about for support? For support. For support, we have something called as the in banyan tree. We can see some in banyan tree. In the case of banyan tree, we can see something called as. I'll change the color. We can see something called as prop roots. Prop roots in the case of banyan tree. Here, have you seen this? Have you seen these, students? This is called as prop roots, hanging roots. Can you see this? These are called as prop roots, and they help in supporting. So supporting, I told you, prop roots is support. Prop roots is support. Now, the second one is called as, in the case of your sugarcane or maize. Second one in the case of sugarcane or maize. Sugarcane or maize. In the case of sugarcane or maize, students understand the diagram. If this is the stem, these are nodes. From the lowermost node, this is the lowest node, right? Lowest node. From the lowest node, we can see some form of roots arising from the lowest node. And these nodes, which are coming from the lowest node, they are called as stilt roots. They're called as what? Stilt roots. They are called as what? Stilt roots. Stilt roots. What is the function again? Function again for stilt root is support. You can see here, students, stilt root, I'll show you. These are called as stilt roots. Can you see? This is the lowest node right here. Lowest node. From the lowest node, you can see the development of roots for support. Yes, we can see the roots for support. Those are called as stilt roots. Stilt roots. Okay. These are the typical stilt roots in the case of sugarcane and maize. Sugarcane and maize. Okay. That was for support. That was for support. Now, students, understand. Next one. What about in the case? There are some roots which help in gaseous exchange. Gaseous exchange. This gaseous exchange is seen in the case of your rhizophora. In the case of rhizophora. In the case of rhizophora. What happens in the case of rhizophora, students? In the case of rhizophora, which is mainly found in the case of your marshy area or swamps, swamps, or even high salt condition, salty areas, they are called halophytes, right? In marshy area they are found. That is basically mangrove forest. What happens here in this case is, for example, understand, this is the soil. This is the soil, and this is the main root. This is the main root under the soil. Main root is under the soil. What happens is, in the soil, because of the marshy areas or because of certain conditions, environment, salty areas, there is very less oxygen in the soil. Very less oxygen in the soil. The plants need to breathe. Plants need oxygen for respiration. They need oxygen for respiration. So what happens is, since the roots are not able to get enough of oxygen, since the root are not able to get enough of oxygen in the soil, roots will start to grow from out of the soil like this. They will start to grow out of the soil. And these roots, which are also called as breathing roots or negatively geotropic roots, negatively geotropic because going upwards to away from gravity, these roots, also called as breathing roots, are called as new metaphors. New metaphors. They're called as what? New metaphors. Clear? I will see the diagram. I'll show you the diagram. See this. See, this is the your carrot, basically for taproot, adventitious root, sweet potato, prop root, stilt roots. Can you see this? They are growing out of the soil. They're growing out of the soil for breathing. These are called as your new metaphors. New metaphors. Clear? New metaphors. They have something called as lenticels, which helps in the exchange of gases. Okay, lenticels. See here, respirate root and rhizophora. Throughout the entire area, we can see the roots are arising out of the soil. Out of the soil. Okay. Now let's see what is given here. Roots in some plants. Roots in some plants, students. Roots in some plants change their shape and structure and become modified to perform function other than the absorption. That is called as modification. for support storage of food. Okay, and even respiration, that is exchange of gases. Carrot and turnip and carrot and turnip are taproot. Advantages is what do we have? Sweet potato gets learned for storage. Banyan tree, prop roots. Still roots in the case of your, what is it? Maize and sugarcane. Still roots. Rhizophora, new metaphor. Rhizophora, new metaphor. Okay. So that is the basically modification of wood. Three different types. Three different types of modification of wood. Clear, all of you? Clear? Yes or no? The water is also over. Friends, okay. That was basically the root. That is the end of root. Now, friends, can we start the stem now? Can we start the stem now? Can we start the stem? Green signal for everyone. Can we start the stem now? All of you know this. This is a recap of everything. And those of you learning for the first time, learn it very well. Because you're learning the every line of NCERT. You're understanding every line of NCERT. Now we'll start with the stem. Now, first of all, tell me, is the stem part of shoot system or root system? Simple question, right? Simple question. Tell me, is the stem part of root system or a shoot system? You're like, what is this, sir? Such an easy question. Stem is a part of shoot system. Stem is a part of shoot system. Clear? Now, tell me, does it develop from the radicle or does it develop from the plumule? It develops from the, it develops from the plumule. From the plumule. Okay, develops from the plumule. Clear? Now, do you find above the ground or underground? You will tell me, sir, typical stem is above the ground. Above the ground. Typical stem above the ground. Now, students, understand the next point. Understand the next point. For example, this is a typical stem, right? This is a typical stem. On this typical stem, you will find something called as nodal regions. You can see this is called as nodal region. Node. Between the two nodes is called as what? Internode. Internode is between the two nodes. Now, what is so special about nodal part? What is so special about nodal part? The special thing about nodal part is that on this nodal region, we can see the development of leaf. We can see the development of leaf on the nodal region. Development of leaf on the nodal region. So, in the case of stem, students, in the case of stem, we find node and internode. Node and internode. Node and internode can be found. It is found. Clear, all of you? Clear? Tell me the color of the stem now. Usually the color of the stem is usually green color, right? Green color to brown color. Green to brown. Brown in the older stem is its brown color. Secondary growth hormone it shows. Okay. Green color. So if it is green color, can it do photosynthesis? Yes. Some of the stem can do photosynthesis. It can do photosynthesis. What about the roots? Can the roots do photosynthesis? No. Roots can never do photosynthesis. Okay. Now, what is the main function of stem? Conduction, obviously. Conduction of water and food with the help of xylem and phloem. With the help of xylem and phloem, transportation can happen. Transportation can happen. Okay. Now tell me, friends, is the stem growing towards the sunlight? Is it growing towards the sunlight or away from the sunlight? It is growing towards the sunlight. So can I call it? Can I call it positively? Can I call it positive phototropism? Positive phototropism. Yes, I can call it positive phototropism. Now, is it growing towards the soil or towards the gravity? No. Can I call it negatively geotropic in nature? Negatively geotropic in nature? Yes, negatively geotropic in nature. So that is basically the stem. I hope all of these points, all of you know. It was just a recap of everything. Recap of everything. Okay. One second. Now, you see, nodal region, internodal region, stem region, and there is something called as bud. There is something called as bud. Now, what is this bud? Understand. Understand what is a bud. Okay, understand what is a bud. Okay. What is a bud, students? What is a bud? Bud is nothing but a compact young shoot. What is a bud? Bud is nothing but a compact young shoot. Compact, condensed, young shoot. Compact, condensed, young shoot is basically a bud. For example, there are two type of buds mainly. Two type of buds mainly. Okay, two type of buds. Two type of buds are there. The first one is called as apical bud. Apical bud. The other one is called as your axillary bud. Axillary bud. Now, what is the apical bud, friends? Apical bud. Understand? If this is the stem right here. On the apex of the stem, on the apex of the stem, this is called apex part. Apex or apical part. We can see some form of bud, which will produce leaves. Which will produce leaf, also called as your shoot apical meristem. Right. This region we have the apical bud, which can develop leaf in a acropetal succession, which can keep on producing leaf. Then what is the axillary bud, students? Axillary bud, understand axillary bud. Understand axillary bud. For example, this is the stem. It has nodal regions. As your shoot apical meristem is growing, as the shoot apical meristem is growing, some cells are left behind. For example, understand, this is called as leaf here. We have the leaf here. We have the leaf here. Okay, we have the leaf here. This region right here is called as axis of leaf. Axis of leaf. In the axis of leaf, friends, in the axis of leaf, you can see some cells are left behind. In this region, we can see some cells are left behind in the leaf axis. These cells constitute the axillary bud. Axillary bud right here. Axillary bud right here. That is called as axillary bud, present in the leaf axil. Okay, present in the leaf axil. All of you know the function of stem. Conduction of water and minerals and everything. Okay. Now, one second, students. Let's read what is given in NCERT before we go to modification. See here. What are the features that distinguish stem from a root? The stem is usually ascending part above the ground. Axis bearing branch, leaf, flower and fruit. Yes. It develops from the plumule. All of us know. It has node and internode. All of us know. The region of the stem where leaves are developing, that is called as the nodal region. Leaves are rising from there. Well, internode are the portion between the two nodes. That is called as internodal region. It bears buds which may be terminal or axillary. Terminal bud is called as apical bud. Axillary bud is called as axillary bud. A stem is generally green color. It can also become dark brown in the older. Main function is what? Spreading out branches, bearing leaf, flower or fruit. Conduction of water and minerals. Photosynthesis in some cases because it has chlorophyll. Yes. And it can also help in vegetative propagation, storage of food, support and protection. All of this, students, all of this is basically the modification part. A stem can help in storage, stem can help in protection, a stem can help in vegetative propagation. All of this is nothing but the functions of it. That is the modifications of it. Okay, like for food, for storage, we have potato for storage, onion, reduced stem, colocasia for eating, again reduced stem, ginger and garlic, that also is a stem. All that is storage stem. Okay, ginger and garlic and all. So don't remember always ginger and garlic which you eat, that is not a root, it is a stem. Okay, it is a stem. Okay. Now, friends, now we'll come to modification of stem. Can we start, friends? Can we start the modification? Very important again. Every single part of modification is very important, and the entire stem modification is little elaborate. Entire stem modification is little elaborate, and it has a lot of different layers to it. For example, the entire stem modification can be divided into three categories. Entire stem modification can be divided into three different categories. For example, we have something called as underground stem. Underground stem. We have something called as underground stem. Then we have something called as your aerial stem. Aerial. Then we also have something called as sub-aerial stem. Sub-aerial stem. Each one of them has multiple types. Each one of them is very important to understand because each one is already given your NCERT. Okay, each one is given your NCERT. I will show it to you also where it is given. It may not be very classified separately as underground, aerial, sub-aerial, but it is present in your NCERT. It may not be classified separately, but it is given. Okay, for example, friends, underground stem usually your underground stem is usually non-green. Underground, right? Usually non-green. Usually non-green. Main function is storage. Main function is storage, and also it underground step helps in vegetative propagation. Helps in vegetative propagation. Underground stem helps in vegetative propagation. Now, one by one, let's understand what do we have in underground, what do we have in aerial, and what do we have in sub-aerial modification. Okay, can we start? For example, first we'll start with underground. Underground stem. Underground stem. What are the different types in underground stem? Okay. Under underground stem, the first one which we need to study is the rhizome. Is the rhizome. Then we have something called as corm. Then we have something called as tuber. Then we have something called as your bulb. Four different categories under underground stem itself. Under underground. Now, what is rhizome, student? What is rhizome? Right here is rhizome. Rhizome is basically underground stem which is horizontal. Have you seen all of you have seen ginger and garlic? No, not garlic. Ginger and turmeric. Ginger and turmeric. It is a stem. It has a bud in it. It has a nodal region. It has an internodal region because it is a stem, right? And on the ginger, you might have seen the scales on the ginger. That is basically nodes and internodes. So, what is a rhizome? Rhizome is an underground horizontal stem. It is an underground horizontal stem. It is an underground horizontal stem. Horizontal stem. See here, students, at the nodal region, we can see the development of leaf. Yes. There is also adventitious roots. What is the adventitious roots? Roots which are arising from any part of the plant other than the radical. Adventitious roots. Now, roots are arising from a stem here. Roots are arising from the gingerly earlier. Roots are arising from the stem. Yes. The problem with ginger and garlic is because you use it in cooking a lot. No, ginger garlic paste. In flow it comes out. Okay, food. So ginger and turmeric. Ginger and turmeric is the underground stem modification. Rhizome. Okay, rhizome. Examples very important. Ginger and turmeric. Ginger and turmeric. And even in the case of banana also. Even in the case of bananas. What are the example here? The example here is going to be ginger, turmeric, and even banana. Banana also has a rhizome. Okay, you can see here. Underground stem. Underground stem right here. Underground horizontal stem. It also has something called a sucker also. It is sucker also. This is sucker. Separate development is sucker, but also has rhizome in it. Okay. Now, corm. See this. This is corm. Okay, this is corm right here. Corm is basically underground stem again. Underground, but corm is not horizontal. Corm is vertical condensed stem. Corm is nothing but this is corm is nothing but corm is nothing but underground underground short condensed short condensed vertical stem. Short condensed vertical stem is called as corm. Example, colocasia, zamikhand. Other two different examples. Colocasia and zamikhand. Example is colocasia. Colocasia and zamikhand. Colocasia and zamikhand. Now tuber, all of your favorite, all of the favorite potato chips. Potato chips, right? For example, this is the stem. The main stem, you have main mother tuber. From this, we will have lateral branches coming out. Stem branches are coming out. Terminally, at each branch, we also have one more potato. We will have potato here. Potato. Potato is a tuber. Potato is a tuber. Okay. See here. This is colocation. This is colocasia, where we can see corn. Now tuber. You see tuber is a, it will have bud. Okay. See this. This is the diagram. You see here. Underground stem, mother tuber. Terminally we have a lot of tuber rising. Terminally we also have a lot of tubers rising. Potato is an example of tuber. Potato is an example of tuber. Clear? Last one is called as bulb. Friends, cancer part of the onion. Can you see this part here? This small part here. That is called as reduced stem, which you cut and throw. That is the reduced stem of onion and garlic. Reduced stem. From that stem, we can see roots are rising. We can see this is basically leaf, leaves are rising, and this is the small stem. This is the small stem present in the case of bulb. All of these are different examples of underground stem, bulb. Okay. And the onion, the small part you see, right? This is the stem. Bulb is an example of underground stem. Okay. Now friends, that was just the stem. See example, ginger, zamic and potato. Turmeric is your rhizome. Colocasia is your corm. Right? Those are an example of underground stem. Now we'll go to subaerial. Now we'll go to subaerial. Very interesting again, very interesting. For example, we have something called as runner here. Runner. We have something called as stolon. We have something called as offset. Then we also have something called as sucker. All four are there. Four different types of subaerial modification. Runner, you understand. Runner is very simple. For example, this is the soil and there will be a branch here. All this branch will run parallelly. Branch will run parallelly. Now, students, tell me, on the branch, that is the stem, do we have nodal regions? Yes, we have nodal regions. From the nodal regions, right, from the nodal regions, we can see the development of roots. Development of roots from the nodal regions. So, flat, horizontal stem, and at each node, we can see the development of roots, adventitious roots. See this. In the case of grass and strawberry, this is a nodal region. This is a nodal region. This is a nodal region. From at every nodal region, we can see the development of a leafy part. We can see the development of roots. Development of roots. That is called as a runner. See, at each nodal region, we can see the development of leaf also. Leaves are rising at each nodal region. That is called as runner. Example is strawberry. Example is strawberry. Strawberry, oxalis, and also grasses. Also grasses. Runner. Then what is the difference between runner and stolon then? Very simple difference. Here, stolon knows a little of physics. It will make a sine wave. It will make a sine wave. For example, this is the soil. This is the soil. For example, this is the soil. In the case of your stolon, the lateral branch will be above the soil. It will grow under the soil, above the soil, under the soil. It will making a sine wave. Okay. So long. And every single time it touches the soil, here, it will make roots. It will make roots. And it will also make an arc. It will make an arch. This is called as stolon. This is called as stolon. And stolon can be seen in the case of mint and jasmine. In the case of mint and jasmine. Mint and jasmine. Beautiful flower, no? Beautiful smell. Mint and jasmine. Yeah. Principles of inheritance. I will share, don't worry. Principles of inheritance. I think no, that notes is missing, I guess. Principles of inheritance. I think those notes are missing. I think that's why those notes went missing. That's why I stopped sending only. Because one went missing. Right. See, in this case, this is the branch, right? This is the branch, not the root. This is the branch. Here, branch is making a sine wave. It is making a sine wave and it is going. Okay, it is making a sine wave. It is making a branch. Can you see? This is the branch. Here it was horizontal, just horizontal, it is running branch. Here the branch is going in a sine wave. And every single time it touches the root, you can see the development of roots. Every single time it touches the soil, we can see the development of roots that at that location itself. Okay. Mr. Chiku, did you understand? Chiku, did you understand? That is the stolon. See this. But this is in the case of stolon. It will make an arc. It will make an arc like this. And every single time it touches the ground, a root is developing there. A new plant is coming. It is making an arc. Again, it will go down, it will come up. Go down, come up. Arc is making. That is in the case of stolon. Okay. Maintenance. Then what is offset then? What is offset? Understand, offset is very beautiful. In the case of Eichhorn and Pistia, can you see this? In the case of Eichhorn and Pistia, we can see the offset. In the case of offset, again, in the case of offset, first of all, offset is found in the case of aquatic places. In the case of aquatic places. Okay, in the place of aquatic places, we can find the offset. And if you notice in the offset, at every nodal region, again, nodal region only, we can see the development of rosette of leaves. This is called as rosette of leaves. And a tuft of roots. Tuft of roots. Tuft of roots and rosette of leaves. Can you see? This is called as rosette of leaves. Rosette of leaves. And this is, if this is a nodal region, this is a nodal region. Middle part is called as what? Middle part is called as internodal region. But here internodal region is completely condensed. See here, this is the offset in the middle. It is completely condensed. It is completely condensed. I will send. Don't worry. I will send. I will send the remaining part. Okay. Example is Pistia and Eichhornia. Can you see here also? This is strawberry. This is basically your runner. You see here. This is the rosette of leaves and tuft of roots. Internode is very condensed and we can see the aquatic plants. It can be seen in the case of aquatic plants offset. Aquatic plants. Then what is sucker? Understand sucker, students. Very simple to understand. Look at this diagram. In the case of sucker, what is happening is this is the this is a branch. This is a branch. We have something called as lateral branches developing. We can see some form of lateral branches coming down and lateral branch is growing. This is the lateral branch. This is the lateral branch. A lateral branch is growing at the nodal region and lateral branch is developing and it is growing obliquely upwards and it is growing into a new plant. So this is the main stem. This is the soil. This is the soil. Underground stem, lateral branch, not a root, not a root. Lateral branch, then it is obliquely going upwards and coming out of the soil, like this, obliquely upwards and going up. This is called as sucker. This is called as sucker. You can also see here. Can you see here in banana also? Lateral branch, obliquely upwards, and is growing up. Sucker. Sucker. Okay. In the case of sucker, we can find the lateral branch. This also is called a sucker. Example is chrysanthemum, pineapple, banana. Examples. See here, students. This is called as your rosette of leaves. Rosette of leaves, offset. Okay, sucker. This is sucker. Laterally something is growing out and it is growing to a new plant. Sucker. That was the end of sucker and that is the end of subaerial modification. Now we come to aerial modification. The first one is very important. The most important under aerial modification is called as your phylode. It is called as your phyloclad, not phylode. Phyloclad. Okay. Phyloclad. What is a phyloclad, students? In the case of phyloclad, we have a stem. A stem will become fleshy. Fleshy. Stem is becoming fleshy. And stem can become green. And if a stem is becoming green and fleshy, it will start to do what? It will start to do photosynthesis. It will start to do photosynthesis. There are two examples to this. Two examples. The first example is Opentia. Opentia. The other example is Euphorbia. Other example is Euphorbia. Difference? Stem. Here stem is cylindrical. The stem is cylindrical here. Here the stem is really flat. Flat stem. In the case of Opentia. I'll see the diagram. See this. Can you see this? This is called as Opentia flat stem. This is called as Euphorbia cylindrical stem. Cylindrical stem. Okay, that is the difference. That is called as phylloclad. That is called as phylloclad. Okay. Now, other one is called as tendril formation. For example, in the case of certain plants, this is a stem. This is the nodal region. At the nodal region, we have the leaf. We have a leaf. Yes. Here we have axillary bud. We have the axillary bud here. Axillary bud. What happens is this axillary bud can develop into a tendril. Stem modification. Yes, stem modification. See here. Tendril formation of from axillary bud. Tendril formation. Tendril formation. And tendril formation is seen where? In the case of your cucumber or cucumber, whatever you say it. Cucumber or cucumber. In the case of pumpkins. In the case of grapevine and watermelon. Grapevine. And also in the case of watermelon. Watermelon. Axillary bud developing into tendril. Simple. Now, what is thorn then? What is thorn? Again, simple students. Stem, nodal region. At the nodal region, we have a leaf. Here we have the axillary bud. Axillary bud is developing into a thorn now. Axillary bud is developing into a pointed woody structure called as thorn. Like this. That is seen in the case of lemon and bougainvillea. Lemon and bougainvillea. That is thorn. Thorn. Okay. Pumpkin is the tendril. Tendril in the case of your watermelon also. Can you see here? This is the tendril right here. Tendril right here. Grapevine tendrils. Bougainvillea as the thorn, not spine. Spine in the case of leaf modification. Thorn in the case of stem modification. Citrus and bougainvillea. Can you see thorns here? They are coming from the stem. Coming from the stem region. Stem modification. So what we learn? We learn underground, rhizome, ginger and turmeric, tuber, potato, corm, colocasia, bulb, onion and garlic, runner, strawberry, grasses, stolon, we learned about mint and jasmine, offset, pistia and icornia, sucker, banana chrysanthemum, right? And pineapple, tendril, we looked at your pumpkin, cucurbits, thorn in the case of citrus and bougainvillea, phylloclad in the case of opentia, as well as in the case of your euphorbia. All the examples you need to remember at any cost. Okay. You might be saying, sir, what do you tell so many? Because I've been teaching for many years, I can remember easily now. Now it's your job now. Everything is given in NCERT, you can see here. See, modification, underground, turmeric, rhizome, ginger, rhizome, potato, tuber, zamikhand, corm, colocasia, corm, right? For storage, stem tendril, very different from leaf tendril. Stem tendril, where axillary bud develops into slender spirally coiled structure. Why? For climbing purposes. Pumpkin, cucumber, watermelon and grapevine, cucurbits. Axillary bud developing into pointed structure. Pointed woody structure that is called as thorn. Thorn. Seen in the case of bougainvillea and citrus. Bougainvillea and citrus. Phylloclad in this case of opentia and euphorbia. Phylloclad for modification for photosynthesis. Now under we have strawberry, for that is runner, mint and jasmine, stolon, right? Pistia and icornia, offset, chrysanthemum, right? Banana, pineapple, chrysanthemum is the sucker, right? Everything is given here. A lateral branch originates from the base of the underground portion of the main stem. Lateral branch growing horizontally beneath, horizontally beneath, lateral branch. Then it is obliquely going upwards and coming up, and then comes out obliquely upwards, giving rise to new leafy shoot. We learned it in chrysanthemum, pineapple, and banana. Every single example is given here in NCERT. All the diagrams also are given here. Storage, tendril, thorn, propagation. That is basically a runner. Okay, runner. So with that, stem also is done. Now students, we will take a 20 minutes break I will go eat something and come. Then we will start leave. For example, time is now 7:45, 8:40, 7:45, right? We will start at 8. Class resume at 8:10 p.m. Okay. Class resume at 8:10 p.m. Then we will do leave. Then we will do leave today. Okay. So I'll go eat and come now something. 8 o'clock happened. So 8:10 I will come back. Okay. So I'll see you at 8:10 all of you. So, hello students, welcome back to the second part of today's class, obviously. Now, students, we finished with the stem as well as we finished with the root. In detail, explanation has been done. We also dealt with the modification. Let me give a small recap of what we did today. Give a small recap how we started the class and where are we right now. We start off with basically what is morphology of flowering plants. All of you know, right? All of you know what is the meaning of morpho. Morpho means shape. Logy means studying of shape, right? Morpho means shape and logy means study, right? In this chapter, we'll be studying the shape of the flowering plants, and we learned about vegetative reproductive characters. Then we learned about root. Like for example, what is the root system? We learned about different following points, and we also learned about tap root, main root. We learned about functions of root. Then we learned about monocot also has a tap root, but it is very short-lived, right? We also learned that. Then we also learned about the modification or types of root. First of all, there is something called as tap root, fibrous root, and adventitious roots. Three different types of roots. Yes. Then we learned about your modifications, where we learned about for storage we have something called as tap root and adventitious roots for storage. For support we have banana tree, that is prop roots. Maize or sugarcane has your still roots. Then we have gas exchange, we have rhizophora. Then we have the rhizophora, which basically has the new metaphors. New metaphors are called as breathing roots. They come out of the soil into the air for respiration or breathing. For breathing, not respiration. Here are different images. Then we learned about your stem. And what is a stem? It is part of your shoot system, developed from the plumule above the ground. Nodes and internodes are found. Green to brown color, photosynthesis, conduction of water and food. We also learned about the functions of a stem. We also learned about the bud, apical bud, axillary bud. Apical bud present at the apex, axillary bud present at the axis. And this axillary bud, students remember, this can develop into a branch or a flower. Develop into a branch or a flower. Axillary bud can develop into a branch or it can develop into a flower. Okay. I don't know if there are ads. I can't control the ads. I'm sorry. Then we learned about function of a stem. Right. Function of a stem is basically anchorage. It also helps in transport, conduction, and everything. We learned about modification. Underground stem, aerial stem, and subaerial stem. Three different types of stem modification. Now, under underground stem, we learned about rhizome, corm, tuber, and bulb. All three are underground stem. Rhizome example, we learned about ginger and turmeric. Corn we learned about colocasia and zamikand. Tuber we learned about potato. Bulb we learned about onion and garlic. Here are the images. Here are the images of every single one of the underground stem. Then we learned about aerial stem. Subaerial. Under subaerial we learned about runner, stolon, offset, and sucker. Under runner we learned about strawberry and oxalis. Here students. Strawberry. Can you see this? This is the old plant. This is the lateral branch. Every single time it is touching the ground, a new plant is arising. Can you see? Every single time it is touching the ground, at the nodal region, we see development of new plant. Development of new plant at the nodal region. Then this is called as your offset, pistil icornea, pistil icornea. Then we had your aerial stem modification. We learned about phylloclad, which is basically a stem becoming photosynthetic to do photosynthesis, right? Then we learned about tendril modification. Tendril modification in the case of your cucurbits and grapevine. Cucurbits, cucumber, pumpkin, grapevine, watermelon. Watermelon, pumpkin, cucumber. All three are cucurbitas, cucurbita family. Right. Then we learned about thorn in the case of lemon and bougainvillea, where axillary bud becomes pointy and woody. Yes, we learned that. And we learned all of these different diagrams and underground, subaerial, aerial, stem modifications are done. Till now, I believe there should be no doubt, right? There should be no doubt till now. Any doubt? Please ask me in the chat. Any doubt till now, students? Any doubt till now? If there is no doubt, now we go to the, skipping all the questions, obviously, to the leaf. Now, if you look at typical structure of a leaf, students, if you look at typical structure of a leaf, it has something called as three main parts. First one is your lamina, second one is the petiole, and the third one is the leaf base. Three main parts of the leaf. Lamina is basically the entire broad surface is the lamina. Petiole is the stalk of the leaf, is called as petiole. Then we have something called as the leaf base. This is called as your leaf base. And we also have the axillary bud in the axil. All of you know axillary bud. And stipule, which is a leaf-like structure. Leaf-like structure. Now students, this leaf base, right? Leaf base can be of three types. Leaf base can be of two types. What will happen if the leaf base becomes completely swollen? When the leaf base becomes completely swollen, it is called as pulvinate leaf base. Technical term again. Pulvinate leaf base is nothing but swollen leaf base. Can you see? Diagram you see, don't see the diagram. Leaf base is completely swollen, and this is seen in the case of leguminaceae plants. Nitrogen fixing plants. Leguminaceae plants, completely swollen leaf base right here. Then what happens in the case of monocots? In the case of monocots, we have something called as sheathing leaf base. Can you see? The leaf base is partially or completely covering the stem. This is the stem, right? This is the stem. This right here is the stem. Is the stem right here. So leaf base is completely or partially covering the stem right here. Partially covering the stem itself. That is called as leafing sheath base. Leafing sheath base. Right? Now, let's see what is given in NCERT. A leaf is a lateral, generally flattened structure born on the stem. It is born on the stem. Where exactly? At the nodal region. At the nodal region, developed at the nodal region, and bears a bud called as axillary bud. Okay, which later develops into a branch or a flower. All of you know that. The leaf originates from the shoot apical meristem. See here. Origin is SAM. Developing. Developing is the nodal region. Nodal region is developing, but origin is because of shoot apical meristem. As the shoot apical meristem is growing, leaves are developing in an acropetal manner. Yes, I saw the telegram already. I saw the telegram also. I hopefully even on Instagram also sent it already. Okay. In an acropetal manner. What is the meaning of acropetal? Acropetal succession means, I'll show you the diagram, you will tell me students. I will show you the diagram meaning of acropetal, you will tell me now. This is a main stem. This is a nodal region. This is a nodal region. Nodal region. Okay. Now here we can see leaf. Tell me what is this? Here we can see young leaves at the top, young leaves at the top, old leaves at the bottom. This is called as acropetal succession or acropetal arrangement of leaf. Acropetal arrangement of leaf. Okay. The most important vegetative organ for photosynthesis. Obviously, because all the light reaction, dark reactions happening in the mesophyll cell, which is found in the leaf. Mesophyll cell found in the leaf. Right. A typical leaf consists of three parts. I told you. A typical leaf has how many parts? Three parts. Leaf base, petiole, and lamina. Lamina is the wider region. Petiole is the stalk. Leaf base is the swollen is the base of the leaf. Right. A leaf is attached to the stem by leaf base. Okay. Bears two lateral leaf-like structure called as stipules. There will be stipules. In monocots, leaf base expands called as sheathing leaf base. Sheathing leaf base. In the case of leguminous plants, we already told you. In the case of your monocots, in the case of leguminous plant, we learned about pulvinous leaf base, where leaf base becomes swollen. Yes. What is the function of petiole? Petiole helps in flexibility to the leaf. Then we have lamina or the leaf blade. It is green expanded part of the leaf which has veins and mainlets. Veins and mainlets. Also has the midrib in the middle. Okay. Now students, understand the shape, margin, leaf apex, surface and extent of incision of lamina varies in different leaves. For example, if you can see different types of leaf shape. Apple tree, maple tree, oak, birch, elm, palm, linden. Every single leaf has a different shape, different margin. Can you see? This is called as margin. This is serrated margin, dentate margin, lobate margin, pedate margin. Every single leaf has a different margin. What is apex? This part is called as apex. Acute apex, obtuse apex, recurved apex. So every single leaf has a different apex also. Apex. So based on that, leaf can be classified. Leaves can be classified based on the apex, based on the margin, based on the shape of the leaf. Clear? Now there's something called as venation. All of you know. What is venation? Arrangement. Can you see this line here? Arrangement of veins and veinlets. Arrangement of veins and veinlets is called as venation. In the case of dicot, we have the reticulate venation. In the case of dicot, we have the reticulate. This is called as reticulate venation. Can you see? This is called as reticulate venation. At the same time, in the case of monocots, we have the parallel venation. Can you see? We have parallel venation in the case of monocots. Done. Dicots, reticular venation. Can you see? You might have seen this in the leaf. If you go out of the house, you'll see all this. Okay. Can you see reticular venation? Reticular venation. This is called as parallel venation. Can you see parallel venation in the case of monocots? Okay. Now, students, let's understand. Ecosystem will do eventually. Ecosystem is very easy, students. Your entire ecology is very easy. You'll get over very. Don't worry. Okay. Now, types. Understand the types of leaf. Types of leaf. Okay. First of all, there is something called a simple leaf and compound leaf. What is the difference? Difference between simple leaf and compound leaf. Understand. Simple leaf and compound leaf. Simple leaf and compound leaf. In the case of simple leaf, understand students, in the case of simple leaf, this is a typical simple leaf. This is a typical simple leaf. Can you see? This is a typical simple leaf. Here, this part, you see, which is going inside, this is called as incision. Incision. In the case of simple leaf, incisions do not touch the midrib. They do not touch the midrib at all. Incisions do not touch the midrib in the case of simple leaf. Now, what about compound leaf? In the case of compound leaf, students, understand. In the case of compound leaf, all the leaflets, these are called leaflets now. Leaflets are touching the midrib. Yes. And the midrib here is called as rachis. It is called as what? Rachis. This is the form of compound leaf. All the leaflets are touching the midrib. It's called as compound leaf. And the other one is simple leaf. Okay, simple leaf. Now students, under compound leaf, there are two types again. Under compound leaf, there are two main categories. The first one is called as what? The first one is called as your pinnately compound leaf. Pinnately compound leaf. And the other one is called as palmately compound leaf. Palm, like a hand. Palmately compound leaf. Palmately compound leaf. Pinnately and palmately compound leaf. Understand the difference again. In the case of pinnately compound leaf, we have the main rachis. We have leaflets arising. Leaflets. This is the rachis. This is the rachis. This is the leaflets. Right? These are the leaflets. This is the rachis. In the case of pinnately compound leaf, the rachis is attached. Rachis is attached to petiole. Rachis is attached to the petiole. And petiole is attached at the nodal region. Petiole is attached to the nodal region. So node, petiole, then rachis. But in the case of palmately compound leaf, students, in the case of palmately compound leaf, all the leaflets are arranged on a directly on the petiole. Directly on the petiole. There is no rachis here. Okay. There is no rachis here. Directly into the petiole. Example. Here we have neem. Here we have silk cotton. Understand the difference. In case of pinnately, rachis, petiole, node. In the case of your palmately, directly to the petiole. Now, students, one more difference between simple leaf and compound leaf. All of you know that this is the stem, nodal region, a leaf is arising. At the axis, we have something called as the axillary bud. We have the axillary bud right here. Here also, at the end of this leaf axis, we'll have an axillary bud right here. But in the case of compound leaf, you will not find an axillary bud at the end of leaflet. Not find. Axillary bud will be present only at the end of the entire compound leaf. Here we will find the axillary bud. Here you will find the Axillary bud. Axillary bud will not be found here in the middle. Only at the end you will find axillary bud. Difference clear to all of you? Pakka pakka clear? Yes. Next thing is called as phyllotaxy. Very simple, students. Very simple. Very easy to understand phyllotaxy. Phyllotaxy is basically the arrangement of leaf and arrangement of leaves on the stem. For example, what is happening in alternate? What is happening in alternate, students? Alternate. In the alternate, at each nodal region, students, at each nodal regions, there is only a single leaf. At each nodal region, a single leaf is arising in an alternating manner. Can you see here, students? Can you see here? At each node, a single leaf is arising at each node. That is in the case of alternate. Now, what about in the case of opposite? In the case of opposite, students, at each nodal region, we have two leaves. Can you see here? Two leaves at each nodal region. One leaf here, one leaf here. That is called as opposite. At each node, two leaves at each node. Then what is world? What is world? In the case of world, if this is the main stem, and at each nodal region we have more than two leaves. Can you see? More than two leaves at each node. At each node. That is called as world. That is called as world. Example is China rose, mustard. China rose, mustard, and sunflower. Here guava and calotropis. Guava and calotropis. Here we have Alastonia. Alastonia is the example. World phyllotaxy. Clear all of you? Okay, clear? Yes. That is called as understand. In alternate phyllotaxy, what is happening? Single leaf arising at each node. One node, one leaf. Alternating manner, alternate phyllotaxy. Example is what? China rose, mustard, and sunflower. Opposite phyllotaxy, what is happening? At each node, two leaf in opposite direction. At each node, two leaf in a opposite direction at each node. Guava and calotropis. World, more than two leaves at each node. World, Alastonia is the example. Done. Hibiscus, mustard, and sunflower. Guava and calotropis. Can you see? At each node, two leaves. At each node, two leaves are rising. Calotropis also can you see? Each node, two leaves are rising. Each node, two leaves are rising. World, Alastonia. At one node, multiple leaves at one node. Now, students, last topic for today. Last topic for today is the leaf modification. Understand leaf modification, students. For example, first one is for support. Is for support. A leaf is modifying for support. A leaf is modifying for support. For example, leaf is modifying into tendril. In the example is pea plant. Example is pea plant. That is, a leaf is getting modified into tendril directly for modification for support. Second one is for protection. Is protection. Protection. For example, leaf is getting modified into spine. Leaf is getting modified for spine. Example is cactus. Cactus is example. You might have seen in the cactus. This is the stem. This broad thing is called as the stem. On this stem, do you see small tiny things? Spike-like structure. Those spike-like structure are the leaf. They are the leaf. Not the entire round structure is the stem. These spikes are the leaf. Okay, for protection. Then for storage, friends. For storage. A leaf can also become for storage. That is, a leaf can become fleshy. You eat the leaf here basically. Not like coriander and all. Not like coriander and all. Example is onion and garlic. Onion and garlic. In the case of onion and garlic, do you eat the onion and garlic? You're eating the leaf there. Yes, eating the leaf there. Now, students, the fourth one is modification. Modification of petiole. Modification of petiole. For example, this is the nodal region. Here we have the leaf. This is the petiole. A petiole is becoming big and it is becoming photosynthetic. A petiole is becoming photosynthetic in nature. photosynthetic in nature. Example, Australian acacia. Example is Australian acacia. Australian acacia is the example. Clear? Other example, pitcher plant for hunting. Hunting. Pitcher plant, Venus flytrap plant. See here. Tendril, leaf modification. Tendril for climbing in the case of pea plant. Spikes for protection defense in cactus. Fleshy in the case of garlic and onion for storage. Can you see fleshy leaf? Storage. Now what is this round structure, students? This round structure is the stem here. This entire green part is the stem here. This round things, these are called as leaf. Don't get confused. In the case of Australian acacia, that is for your petiole. Petiole becomes petiole. And this is called as your petiole modification is also called as phyllodes. Is also called as phyllodes. Phy or cladode. Phyllodes. Other was phyloclad. This is phyllodes. Okay. In the case of your stem, we learned about phyloclad. Remember? We learned about. In the case of stem, we learned about phyloclad. That is different. Phyloclad is for stem modification. Stem modification. In the case of leaf, students, in the case of leaf, we have the phyllodes. Phyllodes in the case of leaf, where petiole becomes photosynthetic. Petiole becomes photosynthetic in nature. Other example is insectivorous plants, Venus flytrap, pitcher plant also is modification. See the diagram. See tendril modification. In the case of leaf becomes tendril. Spines. Each spine is a leaf. Cactus. This is onion. Can you see? Dry scale leaf which you remove, fleshy leaf which you eat later on. Leaf you're eating. Can you see petiole? This is the petiole right here. Petiole. Petiole is becoming photosynthetic in the case of Australian acacia. Pitcher plant. You see, a leaf is getting modified. This is the entire lamina. Is getting modified for hunting, right? And students, that is the end of today's class. Okay. So let me know in the comment section if you understood today's class, and also let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed today's class. Okay. And that is the end of it. That is the end of today's class, students. And I will see you in the next class, all of you, probably the part 2 of this chapter. And until then, revise NCERT, read NCERT. If you don't understand anything, ask me personally. I can always reply to all of you. I will never say no to your questions or inquiries. Okay. So thank you so much, students, for today's class, and